Cowboy Nation is probably feeling one of three different emotions right now. Disappointment, frustration, or expected. Let's talk about it right now. Cowboy Spit.
Here we go! Yeah, here we go! Wait,
Cowboy Spit.
Throws back of the end zone. There's
What's going on, everybody? Cowboy C3. Cowboys lose 34-10 to the Texans. Oh, my bad, Joe. It's been one of them nights. Cowboys lose to the Texans 34-10. As you can see right here on the board, Cowboys had 321 passing yards, 63 rushing yards. Scored a touchdown on a nice play to Kevontae Turpin from the slot, right? From the slot, hit the seam. Been saying it all year. They finally do it. Must have watched Cowboy Spit for a little bit. Texans come away with 257 passing yards. 257 passing yards, 141 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, all on the ground, all by Joe Mixon, who, had a good game, but that's pretty much become, normal when you play in the Cowboys, especially when you play them at home, right? They haven't been stopping the run, haven't been stopping the pass, haven't been doing a lot of things well at all at home. But there were some promising things that happened today. Let's just go over some of these numbers real quick. CJ Stroud ends the game 23 of 34 for 257 yards, no passing touchdowns. He had a couple of passing touchdowns called back, had one long one on the very first play of the game called back. We threw an interception. Joe Mixon, 20 carries, 109 yards, 5.5 yards of carry, 3 touchdowns. CJ Stroud has 3 for 26, and Dante Pierce has 1 carry for 2 yards. Nico Collins has 4 catches for 54 yards. Tank Dell, 4 catches for 54 yards. Joe Mixon, 2 catches for 44 yards. Dalton Schultz, 5 catches for 33 yards. For the Cowboys, Cooper Rush ends the game 32 of 55 for 354 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. And the punter had a completion for 4 yards on a fake punt that was a really bad idea. CeeDee Lamb ends 8 catches for 93 yards, no touchdowns. Kevontae Turpin, 3 catches for 86 yards and a touchdown. Luke Schoonmaker shows up with 6 catches for 56 yards, and Brevin Spann 4 catches for 42 yards. You had 3 significant injuries on defense tonight. On offense tonight. Jake Ferguson goes out early in the second quarter with it looked like he couldn't really tell what happened. Come to find out he's in the concussion protocol. He's ruled out with concussion. I've been saying all season that I thought something was wrong with Zach Martin. He got beat horribly bad right there at the end of the fourth quarter, towards the end of the game, probably about 6 minutes left in the game. He gets beat on a play where it looked like he couldn't even move. And on the next play, he's on the ground on his knee and he's just shaking his head. And you could read his lips and tell that he told the trainer, I'm done. Like, I'm done. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means I'm done for this game, I'm done for the rest of the season, or I'm done for a career. Either way it goes, he's played 11 years, going on his 12th year in the NFL, 8-time all-pro player. Like, this dude has had a phenomenal career, man. But, his body's just kind of giving out on him. And, it's unfortunate, especially because, and we've kind of talked about this season, that right side of the offensive line. It hasn't been very good, and I think it hasn't been very good because Zach Martin's injured. But Terrence Steele is bad. We'll talk about him in just a second. On the very next play, Tyler Smith gets rolled up, and it's going to be a high ankle sprain. You could tell exactly what it was, and you could tell how he was laying on the field, and he didn't even want to put anything on that ankle. What's going on, man? Down. He didn't even want to put any weight on that ankle whatsoever. It was definitely hurt, man. And that's your all-pro left tackle. That's him. You know what I mean? That's the one guy that has played. He hasn't been fantastic, right? But he's been your mainstay on your offensive line for this season. And now, he's probably going to miss a couple weeks because that ankle got rolled the opposite way, right? And, whenever that happens and the player can't, he's just sitting literally like in a Indian style type of sit down, and he's just holding that ankle and the trainers are looking at it. So you lose your veteran offensive lineman on your right guard, and which, like I said, he hasn't had a fantastic season. Then you lose your focal point of your offensive line and Tyler Smith. You lose him on the very next play. So the backups come in, right? And this third down. Backups come in, and I'm like, well, shit, man, you got all non-starters on the offensive line except for the center now, because Tyler Guyton went out earlier in the game with a shoulder injury. That shoulder's obviously bothering him pretty bad. He goes out. So you got all non-starters except for your right tackle. Your right tackle on the very next play, the right tackle just gets absolutely blown by and gives up a sack, and that pretty much ended the game. Gave up. TJ Bass was playing in place of Zach Martin. He gave up a sack on the next play. You know what I mean? Brock Hoffman came in, filled in for Tyler Smith. And this is probably the offensive line that you're going to have going into next week. This is probably what you're going to get. Defensively, I don't think the front seven played that terrible. They looked bad on the first drive when Joe Mixon scored. I think it was on a 32-yard run. Once again, Mozzie Smith gets pushed off his spot. Joe Mixon has a clear cutback lane. Nobody even barely touches him into the end zone, and that's fine. But the rest of the time, and it really happened after the second touchdown when he kind of high-stepped in the end zone and then told whoever it was he ran by, and I think it was Malik Hooker ran by him, told him he was too small. After that, he had some pretty rough sledding for the rest of the game. And, I was proud of the defense just for putting up a fight. And in this football game, we win this football game all the way up until about midway through the third quarter. Offense couldn't really get anything going. Defense, once again, is out on the field too long. You start getting gash plays, especially Nico Collins is a problem. He is an issue. Their offensive line is what's going to keep them from being real special this year at Houston. They're especially in the middle. Their center and their two guards, they don't play very good football. And we got some pressure. We created pressure. Overshown came through on a play where he was just totally unblocked, and he came through, and CJ Stroud had to make, just a quick throw just to get the ball out of his hands and not take a sack. The Cowboys have bright spots on defense, but the issue is their safety play is terrible. Terrible. Trayvon Diggs was physical tonight, but he wasn't that great at the corner. He did okay. Derek Stingley Jr. had CeeDee Lamb on a clamp, man. He had him locked up. I think CeeDee Lamb ended with 2 catches for 19 yards on him, and he had an interception. He should have had 3. Cooper Rush probably it should have been 5 or 6 interception night. It should have been. But they stayed in there and they battled. Tried to get the ball to Rico Dowdle more today. But, if you're going to run the ball, you have to be able to block it. And the Cowboy offensive line just didn't do a good job of blocking. There was times where rushers were coming free. There was a play in the second quarter where Rico Dowdle had a hole, man, and it looked pretty good, but they ran like an outside run blitz at the perfect time, and the running back, and Rico Dowdle just ran right into the blitzer. It's just things like that, man. Like there's no creativity. There's just none. I was super happy to see Kevontae Turpin score out of the slot tonight, though. I've been calling for that for, I don't know, what is this, week 11? I've been calling for that for 11 weeks. You keep lining them up outside against these number 1 and number 2 corners. Man, Man, this team is straight cheeks. Oh, well, always next year. You know what, man? As Cowboy fans, E-Visions, man, we've been saying this always next year for 30 years, bro. We have. And, you know, yeah, I agree. Mike does need to go. But I got, like I've been asking this question for the last, 3 or 4 weeks when I'm back. I've really been like just looking at the coaching staff and trying to figure out what do you do from here. Man, there's so many people that just don't want to put up with Jerry. Like, where do you go from here? Right. And I think I said it at the end of my last episode. I think he kind of gave you a hint of what he's going to attempt to do. And I think that he's going to attempt to lure Jason Witten in to be the head coach. And it's an easy transition for Jason Witten. He's, a Cowboy for, I think for 14 years. He knows how this organization works. He's coaching a high school team right now. I think his oldest son is a senior and his youngest son is a junior. So, maybe he can talk him away from coaching his, at that time. I don't think Prime would come in here, man. I don't think so. And the reason I don't think Prime would come in here is because Prime likes complete and total control of his offensive line. Of his coaching staff. And Jerry's not going to give him that. Jerry's going to hire offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams coach. He's going to hire everything before he hires his head coach. Prime don't want that, man. Prime doesn't even want. Prime wants to control what media comes into the locker room and who asks questions and what kind of questions that they ask. And, with being here, he's just not going to get that. So, great question, Ron. And I just got through talking about that. I think that Zach Martin may have retired tonight. And it's really unfortunate, but he has been on the struggle bus this entire season. He has been. And it's been hard to watch at times. But tonight, I think his back just gave out, man. I just don't think he could go anymore. And you could tell just by him on the field, just taking a knee and just kind of like you could tell he didn't even want to move. And I just don't think he can do it anymore. And that sucks, man, because like I said it a couple episodes ago, and since we're talking about it, man, we'll talk about it. I can talk about it again. A lot of players have this gradual decline in their ability to play, and it seems like Zach Martin just fell off a cliff. And it's tough. I don't have a problem with that, E-Visions. I really don't. I think it's a great idea. I think it's an excellent idea because now you've got this backup offensive line, and you have this line that, you're going to be missing your starting guards. And those were supposed to be your two mainstays in this offense. And they were supposed to, kind of mentor these tackles and put them in right positions, and that really hasn't happened this year because one has been injured and the other one has kind of been flipping in between guard and tackle because of injuries, right? Well, now you're not going to have that luxury of having these two guards. You're going to have backup guards. You're going to have a tackle in, and then your starting tackle on the right side might as well be a backup. You might as well put a quarterback in that can move. And I think Trey Lance will give you a little bit of freedom doing that. Prime goes to Carolina, Vegas before he goes to Dallas. He might do the Jets too. I really could see him going to Vegas, and I really could see Vegas drafting Shedeur Sanders, and that way he gets to stay with his son. And then he'll draft, Shiloh in the 6th or 7th round. The only one he'll be without is Travis, because I think Travis, I got an interesting thing to talk about with Travis Hunter. I agree. You got to see what you got with Lance. So give him an opportunity. Like, this is the prime chance. He's your 4th round pick because that's what you spent on him, right? He is your 4th round pick. You might as well put him in the game and see what he can do. It can't go any worse than it's going right now. It can't. And he gives you an extra dynamic because he's good on his feet. Hell, once he goes into the backfield, he's probably the best running back we got. He is. Rico is a serviceable NFL running back. He is a fantastic number 2 in any other franchise other than the Dallas Cowboys. Solid number 2. a number two that you could keep around for a long time, right? As far as being the bell cow running back for an NFL franchise, I just don't think that Rico Dowdle is the answer to do that. I don't. But you know, your wide receivers, you know, they tried to sprinkle Flournoy in. They tried to sprinkle Mingo in. You tried to get them going a little bit. You know, didn't really have an opportunity to do that. Jalen Tolbert didn't play terrible, right? He didn't play great, but he didn't play terrible. Super happy to see Luke Schoonmaker get an opportunity. That's a second-round draft pick that a lot of people felt like was kind of wasted, right? But he came in and had a pretty solid game. He had 6 catches today. Trey might go down as one of the biggest wasted draft picks ever. Give a kid a chance. Agreed. You know, he is a number 3 overall pick. Number 3 overall pick. And just trying to give himself a second chance here in Dallas, and you go out and you spend a 4th round pick on him, man, you might as well just see what the kid got. He had a bad preseason. I agree 100%. He had a bad preseason. But now, I mean, it cannot go any worse than what it's going right now. It can't go any worse. It's just to the point now in the season where I would just start pulling people off the bench. I'd let Deuce Vaughn start some games and let him run the ball, man, because once you start this rebuilding process on this roster next year, like, you need to figure out these people that are on the bottom of the depth chart, which ones you gonna keep and which ones you gonna let go. Because some of your starters are going to be on the bottom of that depth chart. Mozzie Smith, they're gonna be on the bottom of that depth chart, and you need to figure out if you got a spot for him or not. So if you got one of these younger players that are down, you know, at the bottom of the depth chart, put them in the football game, man, and see what they can do, because it might be time for some of these veterans to seek employment elsewhere. And that's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? You know, your receiving core is probably, you know, at least bottom third of the NFL. Your running back room is terrible. It is the worst running back room in the NFL, and your offensive line doesn't look good at all either. And your defensive line is crazy. So I don't have a problem with Jalen Cropper. I don't have a problem with him at all. And I think he should get some ball. He should get some playing time. I really do. And I don't think he gets a chance. I think Flournoy should get a lot more playing time than he's getting. I think you need to design some plays for him. You already got your 4th round draft pick for next year in Mingo. You might as well see what he can do too. So you throw Trey Lance in with these people, man, and y'all just run the offense and see what happens. And let Deuce Vaughn get some carries, let him catch some passes out of the backfield. Still yet to have seen that. He's small. It's going to be hard for him to break into the second level. So you put him in the second level by throwing him the football outside of everybody and then letting him do what he did like he did in college. Once he gets to the second level, he is an absolute terror, right? The problem in the NFL is just getting him to that second level. And the reason that he can't get to that second level on a consistent basis is because of his size. He's a small guy. So you got to create plays to get him to get him into that second level and let him do what he does. Dude is quick on his feet. He is a threat to break away. You just have to get him to break away. And, you know, like I said, tonight was the first night that I've seen in a long time, and it's probably since Pittsburgh, when you line up Trey Lance in the seam, or trying to line up Trey Lance in the slot and send him in the seam some kind of way. Either run him into the seam and put the ball down the field, or give him the ball quick, like on a slant, and let him get up the seam and let him get in between those safeties and make something happen. And that's exactly what happened tonight. But notice, and I've been saying this and probably in every post game show that I've done this entire season, right? The Cowboys will have a successful play and they'll never go back to it. Kevontae Turpin lined up in the slot a few more times, but he never hit the seam, never went back to that slant. And there were some opportunities, especially in the third quarter, where you were only down like 20-10, right? And you had opportunities where you had the football and you needed some plays on some third downs. And that's something that hey, it worked before. Let's go back to it. Let's go back in the well one more time and let's just see if it works, man. And we just don't do it. Don't do it. And that's and you can't blame anybody for that but the dude with the big PF Chang's menu sitting in his hands with the plays that he's only calling 3 or 4 of them the whole game. It's crazy. That's Mike McCarthy. Once again, try a fake punt in our own territory again. That just doesn't work. Special teams coach, and I don't, Bones Foster is a old, wildly veteran man, and he's had some great coaching years, and in his career. We've been running that fake reverse on the kickoff return for about 6 weeks now, and done nothing with it. And then we try a fake punt 2 weeks in a row and done nothing with it, man. I don't know, man. It just seems like a lot of these coaches on this coaching staff, man, the game has kind of passed them by. That's what it seems like to me. And it doesn't seem like that we can do the things that we need to do. You kind of get a fresh start, especially with the offensive line. You get an opportunity to see what some of these dudes can do. Defensive line, I really don't know what to say. Osio Odigizua flashed again tonight, and he normally flashes, 3 or 4 times in each game. Other than that, your defensive end, Carl Lawson hasn't had a bad season. He literally came off a practice squad in Buffalo and came here and got pushed into the starting lineup, and he's doing a pretty good job. He's decent. He's doing a decent job. Michael Parsons is trying his best to create, whatever he can create, but he's being double teamed. But your linebackers, for the most part, I don't really have an issue with the linebacking core. I like Kendricks in the middle. I think he does a good job leading the two younger guys outside, and Lufau and Overshown. He does a good job kind of putting them in the right position. But it's hard to play linebacker, man, when your defensive tackles are just sitting in your lap the whole game. No penetration, nothing to take the pressure off you so you can roam around and make some tackles. Malik Hooker, I think he might have like 6 tackles all season. He just hasn't done it. He hasn't done a good job at all. Hey, eVisions TV, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for the sub. Everybody else, man, if you haven't subscribed, like and subscribe, man. And I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys sticking in here with me. I know it's late. I'm not going to keep you up too much longer. I promise you that. So what's next? Well, Sunday at noon versus the Commanders. Football team, Redskins, whatever you want to call them these days. But I tell you what you can call them. You can call them good. They're a good football team, and they're coming off a pretty tough loss. And they're kind of going to come. You're going to go into their home, and they're kind of going to have the same mentality as the Texans came into your home with tonight. They're coming off a tough loss, right? Texans have lost 3 out of the last 4. Commanders are coming off a tough loss where they lost in the last couple minutes to the Steelers. And they're gonna come in and they're gonna go be looking for blood. And they are hey man, yeah, we need to do that for sure. No doubt about it. So the Commanders are a really, really fundamentally sound football team with a young stud at quarterback, some pretty good receivers, and a running game where they can do some things where it's a lot of power runs, and they also run some quarterback runs, and it kind of makes them dangerous. And what else they do is this a Dan Quinn defense. It's not the greatest defense in the world, but it's not the worst. It's a very opportunistic defense, and they like to create turnovers. Tonight, especially, throwing the ball in some critical situations, and coming up where passes, should have been intercepted, but they weren't. I don't think you have that opportunity next week. I think you'll have a whole lot of turnovers if you mess around with this team. So you got to wipe this one away. 34-10. Know you lost the state championship tonight. It's all good, man. Like you just said, we always got next year, right? Well, you go into this game next week. Like I said, Sunday at noon against Washington. You're going to DC to play, and it's going to be a tough game. It's a divisional game. That's one thing that you have to your advantage. It is a divisional game. It's always going to be a rivalry game, but you need to play this one close. But Wednesday, we'll talk about keys to victory. We'll break down the Commanders. We'll talk about what they do well, what they don't do well, and what might, what some holes that the Cowboys might be able to take advantage of, offensively and defensively, and maybe try to right this ship. Get a division win, right? And I'm not so sure that like the episode was the other, couple, I think it was last week. I'm not so sure we're not in tank mode, especially now. And I don't even think it's a purpose tank mode. I think it's just a forced tank mode. Like you dealing with the guys at the bottom of the barrel, and you got some starters that may come back. You know what I mean? But I don't even know if you risk bringing them back this season, because they're gonna come in and go all out, and the dude next to him, you know what I mean? He's just trying to keep a job, and you kind of want to keep these guys healthy, especially if you plan on starting over next year. And I don't know if the Cowboys are planning on starting over next year or not. I would hope that they are planning on starting over next year. It is my wish that my beloved Dallas Cowboys start over next year, because I don't like the way this season is going at all. But anyway, all right. So we'll call it a night. Cowboys lose 34-10 to the Houston Texans. Houston Texans come in here and show why they're big brother now, and we will become the little brother. Disappointing loss, but like I said, man, kind of expected. I think I picked the final score to be 34-17. I think that's what I said yesterday. I'm pretty sure that's what I said. So I missed it by a touchdown. All right, guys. Wednesday, we'll break down these Commanders. And then on Saturday, we'll get the keys to victory. Sunday, we will do it. We'll come in. We'll watch the game. And right after the game, we'll go live again, and we'll do this same thing. And hopefully, I don't do it in the wee hours of the night, you know what I mean? Because it's a noon game. And hopefully we have some good news to talk about. All right, everybody. Thank you, guys. Remember, like and subscribe. Thank you, guys, for staying up late with me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Everybody have a great night and have a great rest of the week. We'll see y'all on Wednesday. All right, peace.